former Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett. Prime Minister, thank you for being with us, and thank I'm happy we had you available right at the top here to go to. I believe we have you available. There you are. Thank you for being there for us. All right, let's talk about the hiccups in this ceasefire deal. As I understand it, the Israeli cabinet is meeting at 7 a.m. tomorrow. What do you understand is going on?
It's going to pass. There's obviously considerable resistance and debate in Israel regarding the deal. Many feel that it's a vital deal, that we're bringing home hostages. But on the other hand, many oppose it because it leaves two-thirds of the hostages in Hamas's hands, and it keeps Hamas up and alive. So it's a highly debated deal, though a majority of Israelis support it. It will pass in the vote in the cabinet. There's a big majority.
Do you think doing a phased deal is a good idea, given all of the tensions, all of the ways that this could go wrong?
Generally, I would think that a much better approach would be all of the hostages. It's tremendously problematic to keep two-thirds of the hostages in Hamas's hands. But we are where we are. I don't want to second-guess my own government. But I will say that earlier today, I met families of the hostages, and they were amazing, because even families that their member is supposed to be released in this deal said that they feel terrible that many others are going to stay in captivity of Hamas. And that's the type of solidarity that makes me proud to be Israeli.
The former Israeli ambassador to the United States, Michael Oren, says that this is a bad deal, but it's a deal that we have to take because of the failures of October 7th. What do you think of that?
Look, I think factually the government had set three objectives, which is to beat Hamas militarily, replace Hamas on a civilian layer, and bring home all the hostages. Factually, we've not met those objectives, any of them, as of yet. That's a fact, and we're 14 months in. Are there better ways to have handled the whole thing? Perhaps, but we are where we are. And my main message is that Israelis are united in embracing the hostages and looking to ensure that all the hostages will be brought home. And ultimately, we have to be able to replace Hamas. We cannot allow Hamas to be left standing up after what they did, because they are saying right now that they're going to do it again.
There were images of Hamas celebrating in the streets of Gaza yesterday. I'm sure you saw them. Hamas has not been eradicated. Secretary Blinken here in the United States said that there's been 3 Hamas recruits for every one that Israel has been able to kill. Was this war successful?
You know, we had to go to war to remove Hamas. I see those celebrations. I'm not impressed by those celebrations. They are celebrating a cult of death. We in Israel celebrate life, and life will prevail. Make no mistake, these people who are right now chanting Yahya Sinwar and we're going to do October 7th again, that is not the way forward. We will fight them as much as we need until we win. Again, tactically, things could be done differently, better, and ultimately they will be done better, and we will win.
Do you think Israel is safer today than it was after October 7th?
Yes, many of Hamas's abilities, Hezbollah's abilities have been dramatically reduced. But have we achieved the objectives that the 3 objectives that the government set? No, we haven't. I got to be honest. And I think we have to prosecute the war, conduct the war in a much more effective way.
The two-state solution is still the thing that the Americans are holding on to. They want to see it. It's not something that I think you can argue that the Palestinians want. I think they want one state, a Palestinian state. It's not something that the Israelis want. They want one state. They want an Israeli state. Is a two-state solution ever going to be possible? And if so, do you think there's ever going to be a time where, or is there a leader out there that can unite the Israelis? And then is there a leader that can unite the Palestinians to try to coexist peacefully?
You know, the Palestinians had a state. In Gaza, they had an independent state. There was no siege at the beginning, nothing. We handed all of Gaza over to the Palestinians and said, go build yourselves a life. And that was in 2005. And instead, what they did, they built a terror nation. They built tunnels and rockets and missiles in order to kill as many Jews as possible. That's what they did with billions of dollars. So to think that we should now try this again in a bigger scope in Judea and Samaria, that would be a vast mistake, a huge mistake for the state of Israel. We don't want to govern the Palestinians. I don't want to govern the Palestinians. They should have their own autonomy, their own entity. But a full-blown state that would, again, threaten Israel, that's not going to work, and
do you think
a
there's
vast
ever
majority of
be peace
Israelis do not agree to that.
Will
anymore.
there ever be a lasting peace, not just a, no violence, but a lasting peace between Palestinians and Israelis without a two-state solution? Do you think that that Palestinians in Gaza or the West Bank will ever be fully satisfied enough to not try to wage war or to commit acts of violence as resistance if they don't have their own full-scale autonomy?
You see, but the fact is that they're not seeking the state. They had one in their hands and they turned it into a terror state. In Gaza, they governed themselves, had their own elections, their own government, their own everything. And they immediately after we disengaged from there, they turned it into a terror state. So unfortunately, they are not seeking a state aside a Jewish state. They are seeking to remove the entire Jewish state. In our case, we do want others to live with respect and dignity besides us. We're not trying to kill them or annihilate them. They're trying to do it to us. We will not let them do that again. That's our big lesson from October 7th.
What is your vision for the day after? If you were in charge, what would you be proposing?
What I would do ultimately is the following. In Gaza, I would ensure that for the foreseeable future, Israel does not govern Gaza's life. They would have their own government of moderate Arab states, for example, Egypt and the Emirates and the Saudis. We would be responsible for security and have a perimeter surrounding Gaza, in Gaza, so they can't attack us again the way they did. If they would govern themselves, we don't want to govern them, but we have to retain security control. I would do this ASAP because I don't want to be governing them.
Do you think Netanyahu can maintain his coalition?
I don't know. I think the question is the future of Israel. And the future of Israel means that we have to eradicate Hamas and we have to bring the 100 hostages home. We just have to do that. Those are the objectives that the government itself set, and we have to meet them.
And do you have a good idea of how many of them are still alive?
I don't want to talk about the numbers that have been floating around. Some of them have been executed, unfortunately, and many of them are still alive, and we're fighting for each of them and praying that they'll come home safely.
Naftali Bennett, former Prime Minister of Israel, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for being ready for us right at the top of the show when we needed you. Thank you.